Kundalini Research Foundation here in Zurich, Switzerland, speaking to Pandit Gopi Krishna at this autumn, 1976. Our moderator is Joseph F. Dippong. Pandit Gopi Krishna, now in his 70s, is a yogi scientist philosopher. He normally resides in Srinagar, Kashmir, a province of India, but he has traveled abroad in order to meet with scientists and scholars interested in his lifelong work, which is Kundalini research. Mr. Gopi Krishna is the greatest living authority today on the awakening of the Kundalini and its entire ramification influencing every aspect of human life. He speaks of a very personal experience of his own, where the same divine power has been awakened within him after 17 years of meditation. As the Pandit will explain, Kundalini research is the key to understanding every mystery and paranormal phenomena which now defies scientific, rational explanation. Kundalini research offers a comprehensive and testable approach to elucidating the entire spectrum of biological, psychological, sociological, and spiritual experiences which constitutes human life. Because the work of Gopi Krishna is fundamental to the advance of science and to the future well-being of global society, we have asked him to give us his views on various aspects of the Kundalini experience. Joseph Dippong, who will deliver the questions, is the president and founder of the Kundalini Research Institute of Canada and the president and founder of the Canadian Psychic Research Foundation. He has been actively involved for numerous years in teaching meditation and spiritual healing and has been pursuing the areas of the Kundalini phenomena since his very own divine experience, which occurred several years ago. Mr. Dippong's investigation into the wide range of paranormal phenomena and into the systems for self-development and expanded awareness led him to conclude that Gopi Krishna had identified an area of crucial significance for humanity. He also recognized that Kundalini research is the single most important topic for science to examine. We now turn you over to the conversation between the two men, which has already begun.
Mr. Pandit Gopi Krishna, there are no words that I can describe how honored I am that I am able to be here with you today and that I am having this task and a pleasure that I could put some important questions that could be answered by you, where could perhaps clarify some thinking in people's minds. I have several questions that I had put forth, and the first one is has something to do with evolution as to versus the Kundalini power and the evolution of man, and how would this relate to the evolution process in man versus Darwin theory. And perhaps if you care to make a comment on this, how would this evolutionary process and the philosophy compare into the story in the Bible and Genesis of Adam and Eve? So it's a pretty long question.
It is a pleasure for me also to answer it. Now, according to the present view, evolution is a process by which life has progressed on earth from simplest cellular organizations to more complex ones. For instance, it is held that the first organism was a one-cellular growth, which later on became more and more and more complex until it culminated in man. How this happened, there is no satisfactory answer to this question. The answer is given that it was heredity and natural selection and struggle for existence, and other such solutions are offered for this problem. How a plant grew into an animal, how a fish became a reptile, how a reptile became a quadruped, these questions are not very satisfactorily answered. All that is said is that this happened by chance mutations. and that it was the struggle of the creatures against the elements that changed their form and gave them certain definite organic proportions. The general trend of the theory is that evolution has been planless and aimless. It has all been a chance, an accident by which matter built itself into living creatures and finally into man. If we now examine this theory, we find that what is said actually happens before our eyes. For instance, we see that after the combination of the seed of the man and woman, there is a process of growth from a very microscopic speck into an infant into the womb of the mother. And after that, also by a mysterious process of growth, into a full-grown man. So, considered from this angle, evolution is going on before our very eyes. And this principle was also recognized by Greeks. Some Greek philosophers held that life had grown by evolution. Similarly, there is also an Indian theory of evolution, but the difference between the Indian theory and the Darwinian concept is that it is the soul that evolves. It is not matter, it is not the primary cell built of matter which is evolving, but that there is a principle, a life principle, which is evolving from very primary formation into more complex ones. Now the question arises, could dead matter without any intelligent energy or principle in it, purely by accident and random mutations, develop into man and build such a marvelously complex organ as the human brain? What now scientists are facing at present are certain inexplicable phenomena in the brain itself. The knowledge of the brain as yet is very incomplete, and there is no knowledge of the life energy. It is clear that it is neither a chemical energy, nor an electronic energy, nor a gravitational energy. It is not any energy known to science, but all the same, bodies live, they spend energy, they work, they run, they stand, they eat, they sleep. What energy is functioning in the human body or in the body of the animals or even in the plants? We have no answer about it from science. The tragedy has been that these speculations have been premature. The speculation about evolution, the speculation about life, they have taken place when nothing was known or very little was known about the brain. Now, after about 100 years, brain experts are coming forward with explanations that it does not appear that neurons are responsible for the life energy. There is some other element working in a living body in the brain which we have not been able to understand so far completely. And this element is mind. it is now held by specialists that mind has been the dominating force and the guiding force in evolution rather than matter. Therefore, already science is awakening to the realization that the previous assumptions have been precipitate, and that without the knowledge of one part of human beings, that is mind, the older scientists jumped to the conclusion that all this was a play of matter. Although the older philosophers like Plato or Socrates or Plotinus or the Indian philosophers, their viewpoint was that life itself is so peculiar and it has such characteristics that it cannot come out of earth or matter or something dead. There must be a source for it which is living, which is conscious. But somehow this fact was overlooked by the scientists of the last 1 or 2 centuries. And this presumption was held that matter could explain consciousness also. Now here, digressing a moment, let us examine consciousness. All this theory of evolution is a product of consciousness. It did not fall from the sky. It did not come out of the earth, but it is a product of the human brain. And we are negating the same substance that has given rise to this theory. We are cutting at the roots of ourselves, of the fount of knowledge that we have inside, when we say that life has come out of matter and that there is no plan and no design in the universe. We are cutting at our own roots, because the first thing that a man has is design and plan. It is astounding what ignorance has been displayed by these proponents of the theory of evolution. You see, they say that the whole evolution is planless. It has no design. It has come about by accident. And what has it produced? A man who works by design and plan. You can understand the absurd contradiction that they are making. They are just negating their own existence and allowing the human mind to be subservient to dark forces, dead forces, unconscious forces of matter. This has been one of the greatest blunders in history. And the present condition of the world, disbelief and disharmony, crime and aggression, they also partly owe their existence to the uprooting of faith in the human minds. It is only a faith in the design and in the law of the universe, in divine judgment, in a divine power behind creation that can keep the human mind on its path of evolution. Otherwise, there is no other power to check his wild tendencies, no power on earth. But this one idea, this idea that there is a God who watches my actions, there is a God to whom we have to worship, to whom we have to pray, this one idea, the neglect of it has resulted in the present condition of mankind. So, according to the faiths, to religions, evolution or descent or ascent of man has occurred through the will divine. There are different explanations given by different faiths for the appearance of man. We need not go into details in them for the reason that they are sometimes expressed in allegories or in a manner which was suited to the intelligence of the people of that age, but which are not suited to the intelligence of our present age after 2000 or 3000 years of intellectual advancement. So we have now to view it in relation to the present theories also, as well as what has been said in faiths. Here the concept of Kundalini provides a decisive answer to the problem. We know that mystical experience is a proved fact. Even a skeptical writer like Bertrand Russell admits its force. It is an admitted fact that under certain conditions, certain men found themselves in contact with a reality which is not perceptible to the normal consciousness. And what they felt there was a unity, was a radiating ocean of life, of beauty, of love, of intelligence and consciousness. Their accounts are so similar that one is led to the conclusion that this is a real experience. For instance, the Indian mystics, the Sufis, the Christian mystics, the Taoists, and all those who have had religious experiences of the highest type have described their experiences practically in the same terms. There are minor differences, but they agree on the fundamental issues. Now, taking into account this experience in which man finds himself in presence of a higher intelligence, which they called God or Ishvara or Brahman or Allah, it becomes clear that the human brain has in it the capacity to reach another dimension of consciousness which is not accessible to the normal human beings. I am proposing a research on this because my own experience has led me to the conclusion that there is a specific energy in the human body. There is a divine power center in the human body which can lead to this experience. And this divine power center is known in India as Kundalini. And even in the Christian faith, we can safely assume that it is known as the Holy Spirit. It is the spirit which God breathed into the nose of human being, into the nostrils of a human being. It is the Holy Spirit, the life energy of the Creator. This is also known as such in India as the Shakti of the Supreme Being, as his power of creating life and the worlds. So we can safely conclude that if man or if several men have been able to reach a higher dimension of consciousness, which they call as mystical experience or communion with God, it means that there is still a channel open to the brain to have experience of this condition, which means that there is still another rung on the ladder of evolution which man can reach. This means that there is already a predetermined target, a predetermined state where man is reaching at present. And this then leads to the conclusion that evolution is predetermined. It has a target. It is not a haphazard thing. It is a planned thing of heaven, according to which man grew from a primary cell to his present state, as he is actually growing in the womb of his mother from a small, invisible speck to a full-blown man with his intellect, with his beauty, with his charm, and with his personality.
This is very, very interesting, what you have just said. In essence, what you're saying is that it always has been the evolution of man's mind, and which means maybe it's directly defines some of the theories that we've been believing up to now. Do you care to perhaps draw a parallel in Darwin's theory or as well as in Adam and Eve's story?
As I have said, Darwin's theory is more or less mechanical, material. It believes that somehow atoms and molecules combine together and led to life. But the religious view is that life was born out of the will of God. And the phenomenon of Kundalini proves that the evolution is planned, because man is already attempting to cross the barrier of his mind and to reach another dimension of consciousness. I should like to make this a little bit more clear. Now, for the last thousands of years, there has been an impulse in the human mind to know itself, to explain the mystery of creation. And all of us often ask ourselves, what are we? What is this creation? How have we been born? What will happen after death? What are these questions? These questions imply a thirst in man to go beyond the barriers of the intellect. The intellect has not been able to answer the question, who am I? Whence I came? What will happen to me after death? What is this world? Intellect is not even able to answer what matter is actually, and what mind is, what is consciousness. So these deep questions in the hearts of human beings imply that there is existing a thirst, a search in his subconscious mind and even in his conscious mind to seek ways and means to reach beyond the intellect. And this is where the mystics of all great nations have come forward to answer some of these questions. Their answer is that there is a conscious reality, an intelligent power behind creation, and that with love, with devotion, with certain disciplines, with truth, with charity, with compassion, one can reach a state of mind where a communion with this intelligent reality is possible. Science has nothing to say about it because it only deals with the world which is perceptible to our senses and which can be explored by the intellect, but it has nothing to say about a world which neither our senses nor our intellect can reach. So here we come across a new frontier for which a new method of exploration would be necessary. And Kundalini provides that channel. It is the Holy Spirit of life that has led to all the evolution from the primary forms to man. Science has no answer to give whether man has now reached the final state of his being or he is still evolving. Some scholars, as for instance Teilhard Chardin and even Julian Huxley, they believe that there is some sort of an evolution going on. And for Teilhard de Chardin, this evolution would lead to a collective consciousness which will be in communion with the reality. But he does not say the same about individual consciousness. For me, the pressing problem is, who am I? And where am I going? And what will happen to me after death? There is no answer to this question. Similarly, what Julian Huxley says is that a socio-cultural evolution is going on, that is, man is becoming more and more well-versed about the world and is gathering more and more more and more information about the universe. But that does not answer the fundamental questions. What is to happen to me after death? What am I? Am I born to die, or do I belong to some eternal source? These are questions which science is not able to answer, and these have to be answered by religion. This shows that nature has implanted a certain thirst in man to draw him towards a higher state where the questions that are tormenting him are answered. I found this in myself also. The moment I had the first experience, half of my questions melted away. They were finished. I was asking myself, what am I? I am sometimes ill, sometimes healthy, sometimes sorrowful, and then one has to die, and then suddenly the first vision saw me that I was the drop of an eternal ocean, of a fire that was burning everywhere in the universe. And immediately all these problems vanished from my mind. The answer was there. You are eternal. You are a reflection of God. You are an atom from an eternal source. There is no death for you. There is no beginning for you. There is no end for you. And from that day, I felt satisfied. This was the answer directly given to me. But intellect, reasoning, experiment cannot give this answer. This answer everybody has to receive for himself. And it is this answer, it is for this supreme condition that religion came to guide mankind. Every religion, whether it is Christianity, or it is Hinduism, or it is Buddhism, or it is Islam, just shows the way to reach the state where these answers to the intimate problems of existence are vouchsafed to us. We can see this even from the phrases used by Christ, like the kingdom of heaven is in you. That means there is something extraordinary in you, which is not easily accessible, but which, if you follow my precepts and lead the life which I am outlining, then alone you will be able to find that kingdom. And that kingdom is the higher dimension of consciousness which is destined for man. So far as consciousness is concerned, the religious testaments of humanity are the books of science. The present day books of science only apply to the material world. But for the spiritual evolution of mankind, the revealed documents are the books of science, and they have to be followed as meticulously as we are following the directions of scientists for our material prosperity. It will take ages for prophets and for great mystics to add to the teachings that are available to us in the Bible, in the Quran, in the Vedas, in the Bhagavad Gita, or in the discourses of Buddha. So the story of Adam and Eve and the serpent, we have to look at it carefully. It might be bearing some meaning which in the light of scientific knowledge may not be clear to us, But when viewed from the spiritual point of view, it may hold a mystery which we have to explore. It may be an allegory to represent what I am saying, that there is a divine energy in human beings, which is also called a serpent in the Indian tradition, on account of the fact that it can be both benign and also malignant when we sin. Then it can be malignant when we sin, when our lives are sinful, when they do not follow the injunctions of revelation, then this energy can become malignant or Kali. Therefore, we have to study these passages and these explanations contained in the ancient testaments in the light of our knowledge of the spiritual world. They are allegories which we can understand only when we will know the whole scheme of evolution as presented by religion.
In other words, your whole advice here is to humanity to perhaps go back into the spiritual books again.
Definitely. I say, and please mark my words, I say that if all the technological discoveries disappear from Earth, the steamships, the aeroplanes, electricity, and all other very fascinating discoveries of the 19th and 20th centuries disappear from Earth, mankind will live and survive and again may reach the same height of civilization which will be superior than our present civilization. But if these fundamental teachings of religions disappear from Earth, the ethical codes and the sermons, as for instance the sermon on the world, mankind will not survive another 100 years. It is that is why I say that the modern world is blundering. It has fallen into darkness. It has lost its way. Scientific discovery and all the facilities that we are enjoying from science are but an instrument, an aid to our evolution. But if we forget to evolve, then we miss the goal for which we are here, and its consequences can be disastrous.
Pandit, you are now known through your works in books and other works of your high knowledge that you attained through the awakening of the Kundalini yourself, or the very serpent power that you have been speaking about a few minutes ago. In the history of mankind, this past several thousand years, there have been many other illuminaries, such as yourself, Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Krishna, and Buddha, who all had a full awakened Kundalini. Therefore, these people were enlightened. Now, I'm pretty sure that the Western world would like to know, if you were to walk down a street, can anybody recognize you among many people as being enlightened? Would you carry a halo around your head, or some kind of a strange light that ordinary man would recognize? I think it's important perhaps for our audience to understand this.
I must make one thing clear here. I do not profess to be enlightened or illuminated or a prophet or a genius. If you search in my heart of hearts, I tell you sincerely, I feel humbler than the humblest of men. You will think it is incredible, but it is the truth. I feel that somehow, by some strange freak of fate, a certain change was made in my system by which I entered another dimension of consciousness which was not present up till my 34th year. And this sense and this new position, instead of adding to my pride or giving in me the thought that now you are enlightened, is humbling me down. The only thing I can claim is that I am often, and especially at certain times when I write, in contact with a higher intelligence which is completely beyond me. I am just a humble servant, just a human being, just a small creature. Because when I compare myself to this glory, to this splendor, all my human vanity, my human pride and my ego, they are humbled to dust. Therefore, I never think that I am enlightened. And when you come to Kashmir and you are in my family, you can see that I live just like an ordinary human being. Perhaps you will not distinguish me from other people living. And even now I say that so far as worldly knowledge and intellect and other things are concerned, I am perhaps average. I have no pretensions, no thought of anything supernormal or paranormal. What I am giving out comes from a higher intelligence. I am merely an instrument fashioned by fate through no great efforts of mine. I am telling you my heart. One thing I can say, that this change in me has brought some new knowledge which I want to share with the world. And this knowledge is that there is in the human brain a chamber, a dormant area which can be awakened, and this awakening leads to a new kind of perception that has been the experience of the mystics and the prophets. One then comes in contact with another world of life, another world of intelligence, another ocean of consciousness. And that experience is so staggering, so overwhelming, so joyful, and so invigorating and exhilarating that nothing on the earth compares to it. I do not lay claim to anything else. And as far as your question about illumination, I can say that the most prominent test of illumination internally will be to give knowledge that is beyond intellect and that is not known to mankind. This will be the first test of an illuminated consciousness. As far the external appearances are concerned, there will be a charm in the personality of such a person. Humility, love, compassion, Catholicity. And such a person would not be too much addicted to the world or have ambitions or have desires. He will be satisfied with the inner treasure that he has got. It will compensate him for all that we can give him of the earth. But if he walks in a crowd, you will see a human being. Normally, without any sign, he will have two eyes, he will have a nose, he will have a face, he will have a body, just like as an ordinary man has. Just as you cannot pick up a genius from a man of very ordinary intellect in a crowd, in the same way, it is not possible for you to pick up a religious genius, an illuminated person from the ordinary human beings. Because such a thing, if it were a fact, would at once create a difference between normal human beings and an illuminated person, which would not be conducive to the progress of the race, because he will be isolated, or he will be too much homage will be given to him, and he will not have to struggle and battle as he should. But people with finer perception or one who is illuminated himself can pick up another when he comes across him, either face to face or maybe at some distance. It can be possible. Moreover, I am giving into the hands of science certain physiological characteristics that will distinguish an illuminated person from an ordinary human being.
So in essence, what you're saying is that there is absolutely no physical resemblance to something different other than an ordinary.
He will look normal in his appearance, maybe with a better charm and a more fascinating personality, a better way of talking, maybe in such things, but not in the physical makeup. I mean, not any particular sign in the body outwardly that can show him.
Pandit, we in the West are terribly concerned, at least a lot of people are, as to the conditions of the world which is in today, in one particular aspect. And recent statistics shows that human sexuality is almost becoming bizarre in a sense of turning inward and against an unhealthy attitude. And it shows that a lot of people are considering transsexual operations because they are very unhappy in life, changing their particular sex organs from whatever it is physically through operations. There shows in statistical data that in the last 20 or 30 years, homosexuality has increased about 10 times in the last 20 or 30 years. To what do you contribute these factors? And if so, would you care to comment on, are these healthy or natural occurrences?
I cannot say that they are healthy or natural occurrences, but let us consider this issue from the general viewpoint of evolution. We find that during the last 50 years and even more, there has been a great change in human life. In the West especially, people now have a standard of life, have such amenities and facilities that in the olden times even kings could not dream of. Cars, even planes, palatial homes, air conditioning, television, telephone, and all that modern science has been able to devise. But in spite of this fact, we find that mental disorders are on the increase. I have been told that while the physical ailments, we can find place in hospitals for people afflicted with physical diseases. For the mentally ill, there is difficulty even to find places in the clinics, and that the number of mental patients exceeds that of the patients afflicted with physical diseases. So you can see that there is a trend towards the increase in mental disorder. So naturally, there will be also an increase in the perversions of the sexual instinct. There will also be an increase in the perverted tendencies of sex. The reason for this we shall discuss later, But at present, let me say that as we find at present, all the preventive measures or all the treatments that are being given to mentally ill people have not been able to lessen the intensity of mental afflictions. They are growing. Therefore, these operations, they may be successful in individual cases, but they will not prevent their occurrence. This too will increase like other mental disorders. And there is a reason for this. With the amenities provided by the civilization, with leisure, with listening to the television, with constant mental work, you are exciting the evolutionary processes to a greater speed. Now we know that meditation is one of the main methods for spiritual enlightenment, that all mystics and yogis lay stress on meditation and also certain disciplines of life. Meditation is concentration applied on some divine object. That is the only difference. Otherwise, it is also a kind of concentration or mental application. Human beings during these days are applying their mind through all the day to their work, to the newspaper in the morning, to television in the evening, to reading of books, to watching of other demonstrations, lectures, hearing lectures and other things. The result is that there is too much of concentration and meditation going on, and this results in the acceleration of the activity of the evolutionary energy. Now the result of the activity of the evolutionary is to stimulate the sexual region. And this stimulation is done for the purpose to send a stream of radiant power to the brain to have higher consciousness. But when the life of human beings blocks this upward flow of Kundalini energy, then it presses on the lowest chakra to find an outlet. So you will find a very strange phenomenon in all the civilizations, both of the past and present, that towards their decline there was an excessive and immoderate sexual thirst. You find this in Greeks, you find this in Romans, you find this in Persians, you find this in kings and potentates, because the upward flow of the energy is blocked. But the reproductive system is acting faster. Therefore, the energy produced presses downward. The result is that civilization and leisure and concentration and all the type of life which we are leading leads towards a more increased desire for sex. And then after that, people then try to satisfy this, with the result that the system is drained of the vital energy and the brain is deprived of the food that is needed for the evolution of mankind. The result of this is what we see: increased hunger for sex, and in those cases where there is some inner maladjustment, the hunger can take the form of homosexuality or other perverted instincts. There is therefore no wonder that there has been an increase in homosexuality, or that there is an increase in sex, or that people are demanding liberty in sex, both men and women, because they are tormented by this desire. There is no channel to direct it except to the brain. But our mode of life, our denial of God, our materialistic tendencies all act as a block to the flow of energy into the brain, with the result that people in general are tormented by sex. The importance of religion and of what I am saying is still not obvious to mankind. If man continues to follow the present ways of life, he will suffer terrible torments of sex, even greater than are suffered at present. There will be greater revolts, there will be greater rebellions, there will be greater crime, there will be greater aggression, there will be greater wars. Because we are blocking the flow of the energy into the brain, which only a religious discipline and a spiritual ideal can help, not otherwise. So we are suffering. We are seeing certain conditions, evil things around us, which we cannot explain in the terms of ordinary knowledge, but which knowledge of our scriptures, which knowledge of the divine force of evolution at once makes apparent. The conditions that you see in the world, even the conditions of sexual perversion, they are due to a blocked Kundalini. And our present civilization is acting as a clear block to human progress.
I think there was, to me anyway, a very satisfactory answer. And this is an incredible answer, Pandit. How can you give us a way out of this terrible turmoil that some people are in today? Is there any way out at all?
There is a cure for all afflictions. You see, now, according to the modern psychologists, some of them hold that insanity is due to repressed or suppressed sex. This is especially the view of Freud and the psychoanalytic school. And then they advise that there should be indulgence without restraint. But this is against evolutionary needs of the human body. So even this thing will not cure the condition. On the other hand, it will lead to other complications as it is doing at present. Let us take it in this way, that meditation, concentration, application of the mind, civilization, leisure, amenities lead to the acceleration of the evolutionary apparatus. The result of this acceleration is that the reproductive organs produce more of the vital essences and secretions. Normally they should be absorbed in the body and go to the brain to bring a higher state of consciousness to the person. But since our ways of life are not in accordance with the law of evolution, we create a block. When this block occurs, the energy presses down on the sexual organs or genitals to find a way out, and the individual is tormented by an excessive sex desire. I even pointed this out in my review of one of the books of Alan Watts, which he had written about his own life. In the case of the man in whom the Kundalini is awake and has reached the brain, this pressure does not exist, because it is finding a natural outlet and is now going up as ojas, as the Sanskrit savants called it. They call it ojas. It is now transformed into a vital radiation which increases the power of human consciousness. But in the case of the one in whom this has not happened, it will continue to torment. The only way out of this difficulty is to follow the revealed teachings given to us by the prophets of mankind, to lead the life that has been prescribed by great prophets, that is, to worship, to pray, to be charitable, to be compassionate, to have love, to give, to live in the humbleness of spirit and not in wealth and overabundance, not in pride and vanity. When this thing is achieved, this goal is achieved, the nerves become purer and the block is gradually removed. The energy finds its place in the brain and instead of tormenting, becomes the cause of inner joy and peace. That is why in some cases where a disciplined life is followed, meditation becomes such a source of strength, inspiration and joy. We have to give it way to the brain, and that can only be done by leading a disciplined life, by being careful in our food, in our speech, in our activity, in our behavior, even in our sleep, so that we lead a life in accordance with the precepts of the religion, with prayer, with also sometimes meditation, so that our inner self is purged and the block from the nerves is removed, and then man proceeds on the path that is destined for him.
So this would be the only conclusion out of this.
This is the only conclusion, the obedience to the law of evolution, the living of a natural, spiritual life, well disciplined and helpful, charitable, compassionate, without the ambitions and passions that create all the misery and the sorrow and the violence in the world. That is the life, the Christian life, the Buddhist life, the life idealized by Muhammad or idealized in the Gita. That is the only answer to mental deformation. No effort done by humankind, no effort done by medical men, no effort done by psychologists can cure mankind. This revelation is only remedy. Here now we are in the province which nature has kept reserved from intellect.
Thank you. Thank you.